economy, don't they? How did the week actually start for him, economically speaking?
It's interesting because it started pretty strong, according to the sources. He'd just come back from a fairly successful foreign trip, mixing business and diplomacy, and he'd signed that trade deal with the EU.
So things looked positive initially.
Seemed that way, like he was riding a bit of momentum.
But then something shifted. What was it about the economic news, those jobs numbers specifically, that seemed to change his mood so drastically?
Right. That seems to be the inflection point. The weakening and slowing economy, specifically the jobs numbers, but also the revisions for May and June. That apparently really got to him.
Which leads us straight to that firing at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS.
Exactly. And the details here are important. This official, she was actually a Biden appointee, but she was confirmed by the Senate with huge bipartisan support. I mean, 86-8. Senators like J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, they voted for her.
So not exactly a partisan figure.
Not at all. But Trump's reported reason for firing her, he asked who puts these numbers together. He apparently believed it was rigged, even though, there's just no evidence for that. And when asked directly, he said, I fired her because I don't like the numbers.
Just tie along the numbers.
Just like that. And the implications, well, they're pretty significant, according to our sources. It sends a clear message through the government. People feel they have to operate in fear, stick to what's something.
And what about public trust?
That's the huge concern. If you can't trust the official numbers, how do we, the American public, know if we can trust future labor reports? It's seen as, well, another hit to American institutions, weakening them, if not dismantling them.
It raises serious questions.
Absolutely. Like, how can elected officials make good decisions without reliable data? And how can voters make choices about their money, their leaders, just how to function if the basic data is suspect?
The sources used a striking phrase, calling it an Orwellian turn, especially with that blunt, I don't like the numbers reason, contrasting with maybe more polished explanations allies tried to offer.
It is stark. And someone from the Obama administration pointed out, look, they got terrible job numbers in 2009. They might have wished they could fire the stats person, but that's just not how it works generally. It really highlights how unusual this is.
So how did Republicans in the Senate react to this? I mean, firing someone over numbers you don't like, that's controversial.
It definitely caused a stir. There is a clear split response. You had Senate Majority Leader John Thune kind of sounding like he was siding with Trump, saying, there's a lack of trust in those statistics already.
Okay, so some back.
But then you have Senator Smith, a conservative Republican, offering a much more careful take. She said, basically, if he's firing her because the numbers are unreliable, that's one thing we need to know. But if he's firing her because he just doesn't like accurate numbers, well, that's a problem.
A critical distinction.
Very. And others, like Rand Paul, Tom Tillis, they also raised questions. Not just if he can do it legally, but if he should.
Interesting. So what does this tell us about the bigger
爱克信王的朋友给你安排爬墙车。
Are they fully on board with things like his tariff push?
Well, the sources suggest, not entirely, privately, many Republicans apparently disagree or are at least hesitant about his actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Senator the sources suggest, not noted as not privately,
but
many Republicans
Publicly,
apparently disagree
Very
or are
few
at
are
least
willing to
hesitant
challenge him
about his
directly.
actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Well, the sources suggest, not noted as not privately,
but
many
publicly.
Republicans
Publicly
apparently
is the face.
disagree
Most
or
very
are
few
at
are
least
willing to
hesitant
challenge him
about his
directly.
actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Well, the sources suggest, not noted as not privately,
but
many
publicly.
Republicans
Publicly is
apparently
the face.
disagree
Most
or
very
are
few
at
are
least
willing to
hesitant
challenge him
about his
directly.
actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Well, the sources suggest, not noted as not privately, many Republicans apparently disagree or are at least hesitant about his actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Well, the sources suggest, not noted as not privately, many Republicans apparently disagree or are at least hesitant about his actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Well, the sources suggest, not noted as not privately, many Republicans apparently disagree or are at least hesitant about his actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Well, the sources suggest, not noted as not privately, many Republicans apparently disagree or are at least hesitant about his actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Well, the sources suggest, not noted as not privately, many Republicans apparently disagree or are at least hesitant about his actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Well, the sources suggest, not noted as not privately, many Republicans apparently disagree or are at least hesitant about his actions.
With things like his tariff push.
Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the authority suggests this was not a private rule. Many Republicans disagree or are hesitant about the action. Well, the word suggests this was not a private religion. Many Republicans disagree very clearly with evidence about the action. Well, the word suggests this was not a private religion. Many Republicans disagree very clearly with evidence about the action. Well, the word suggests this was not a private religion. Many Republicans disagree very clearly with evidence about the action. Well, the word suggests this was not a private religion. Many Republicans disagree very clearly with evidence about the action. Well, the word suggests this was not a private religion. Many Republicans disagree very clearly with evidence about the action. Well, the word suggests this was not a private religion. Many Republicans disagree very clearly with evidence about the action. Well, the word suggests this was not a private religion. Many Republicans disagree very clearly with evidence about the action.